So, the Batman has released in theaters about a month ago, and I went to go see it about 2 weeks ago. Actually, 2 weeks ago tomorrow. I reviewed it, and now, today, I'm going to rank the biggest superhero movie from every year I've been alive in this one video. Now, before we get started, I do need to say that this list is controversial. I've already have some people telling me that The Dark Knight is bigger than Iron Man. I included Iron Man in this list because Iron Man started the MCU. I didn't include The Dark Knight in this list because it's only a second film in a trilogy. I don't feel if it's as big. Also, this list doesn't include my favorites. Overall, I probably would say The Dark Knight is better than Iron Man in my opinion. But it's just the biggest movie. The movie that made the most impact in the year that it was, and not what I thought of it. And so also, there's going to be movies here that you're going to think, that's not that big. That's also because not very many superhero movies came out that year. And so that's my reasoning for a bunch of these that wouldn't actually be that big. So I just needed to clear that up. And before I get started, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell, and comment down below, what is your ranking of all these superhero movies? This is just every year I've been alive. You could do every year that you've been alive. It would be really interesting. Maybe you're younger than me. Maybe you're older than me. Maybe you're way older than me. I really want to know what your ranking would be. Or if you just want to do this list, that would also be fine. And you could also supplement, like, The Dark Knight for Iron Man, if you please. Anyways, so yes, do all that. And with that said, number 17 is Iron Man 2. Wow, I haven't realized that the first two movies on this list I absolutely hate. This is the only MCU film that I despise. It's got nothing going for it. It's boring, even when there is action. It makes zero sense. Like, the Rhodey Iron Man fight, what was the point of that? It made no sense. And then it tries to combine so many plot lines together. A plot line about Tony and him dying. A plotline about forming the Avengers. A plotline about Whiplash. It's just so much crammed into like a 2-hour film. I really think it would have been better if Jon Favreau had the 3 years. Instead, he only got 2 years. So I think that's a big problem. This film is boring. It's got nothing interesting to add to the genre. And it's my least favorite MCU film by far. And you'll see how much I hate it, because number 16 is Josstice League. And any sensible person will know that Josstice League is terrible. Now, for me, the plot, the movie isn't bad. It's more mediocre than anything. It's not big. It's not fun like I wanted it to be. It was more of just mediocre, kind of, oh, yeah, okay, that was fine. It's a fine addition to this universe. The reason I hate this is because, well, you all know the backstory. Zack Snyder's daughter killed herself, tragically, and so he had to step away from the project, and then Joss Whedon came in, and he just butchered the project. He tried to make it so much about, like, what he did on the Avengers, that he just completely forgot what Zack Snyder was trying to do, and even though of what I saw, I didn't really like the Snyder Cut, I'm really happy that we got the Snyder Cut, because Zack Snyder really deserved that. He didn't deserve this, and it's just a behind-the-scenes drama that really just made me not like this film. Again, the story is mediocre. It's a fine movie. I just hate this behind-the-scenes drama, and that it's very disappointing. And again, I'm very happy that Snyder had the Snyder's Justice League. Next up, 15th place, is Wonder Woman 1984. This is a weird one because, I mean, we all know what happened. He wishes to be the Wishing Rock. Steve Trevor being turned into a normal guy, and then, well, there's no sugarcoating it. Doing it with Wonder Woman. It's just a weird sequel. But to me, it has some fun in it. Sure, the special effects are bad. The action is bad. There's a lot of stupid stuff. But to me, I kind of enjoyed it. I never could rewatch it. Never could get into it. Because it's just a weird sequel. Now, the first Wonder Woman was a really good movie. This film was more of just a weird movie, and that's all it has going for it. I don't really hate it like I know a lot of people did, but it's still, personally, not a good movie. All the actors had fun with it. Just, it has a bunch of writing problems, clearly. And it just really doesn't live up to the hype that everyone was saying. It's like, DC's like, you know what, we're going to have the writers have fun with this one, which is good because I don't really feel like there was any studio interference. They're like, we're just going to let the writers have fun with this one. And yeah, it turns into kind of feeling like a fan fiction Wonder Woman, not a very good movie. I don't hate it, but it's definitely not a good movie. 14th place, Batman Begins. The problem with this one for me is that I don't like origin stories. It's not a problem with the film itself, because when it's not an origin story, it's very good. It's the fact that origin stories for me are just waste of our time to actually get into a decent story. It's just waste. It feels like a big waste of our time because we already know the Batman story. And so it takes about an hour and a half to go over the origin, and then we're done with the origin. Then it's a good Batman story. And for me, that's what I think is with almost every origin story. Now, Iron Man is an exception, and so is Man of Steel. The origin parts on those are great. But films like this, and even Cobra Kai Season 1, for me, like I said, it focuses more on origin and takes away from all the fun that they could have there. Now, like I said, when it's a Batman story, it's pretty good. The action's pretty good. Christopher Nolan really helms the action in a magnificent way. But I feel like this is one of the weakest of the trilogy. I mean, I've never seen The Dark Knight Rises. I plan on soon. But again, this is the definite weakness of the trilogy. It's just good, but it also has a lot of problems. Next up, 13, Captain America, the First Avenger. Now, again, origin story stuff. Except this is more like a basic story. I compare this one to Man of Steel because it's a story that we've all heard before. But it's something that I feel like I could just turn on because I know the story. It'll be a lot of fun. The characters are great. The chemistry between the actors is great. The action is really good. Again, it just wears down by the origin story. And that's why I feel like the Winter Soldier and Civil War are so much better. Because the Winter Soldier and Civil War, again, kind of embrace what Captain America is. This one is just held down by the origin story. And now that's not a bad thing, especially in this case, because it was a pretty fun origin story. It's just that, well, compared to the other ones, it's definitely the weakest. Next up, 12th place, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Now, the problem with this one, for me, is because when I first watched it, it felt like there was too much action. I haven't really rewatched Ascension. It's on the top of my MCU rewatch. Next time I rewatch an MCU film, it has to be this one. But for this one, for me, the first time I watched it just seemed like there was too much action and not enough story. And that was way before I even started actually loving film. That was when I was just all into the Marvel movies. I was obsessed with them. And for me, it just really never connected with me. Some of the action sequences are good. I've seen bits and pieces on rewatches. It's just, for me, like I said, I had problems with it in my first viewing. And I've never actually sat down and fully watched the entire film, which is something I definitely need to do again. And so, I do like the action, like I said. I do like a lot of the stuff. And rewatching Civil War, I've noticed a bunch more stuff in this film connects into that one. I think I just need to go from First Avenger all the way to Civil War. Just binge that entire series. Because this film, again, is in real need of a rewatch. Next up, 11th place is X-Men, The Last Stand. The Last Stand. X-Men, The Last Stand is easily the weakest of the original trilogy. It's got a lot of stuff going for it, but it just feels like it crams so much into one thing. It takes a plotline about Cyclops and wanting Jean Grey. It takes a plotline of the mutant serum. It takes a plotline about pretty much everything you can imagine in an X-Men film and crams it into one, and it feels rushed. The finale isn't very good. It's just kind of a big mess. And that's the thing. I do enjoy this film. But as a film critic, I gotta say it's the worst X-Men film by far. Because, like I said, it just crams everything into one massive film. And it could take, this film could have been 4 films. Or maybe even a miniseries. I think the miniseries would have worked. But for me, X-Men 3 is definitely the weakest out of all the X-Men films. Number 10, Man of Steel. Now, this is, again, like First Avenger, a basic origin story that everyone knows the story of. Now, I do find some of the emotions to be nice when he's trying to figure out his past and stuff, and all that. That's the best stuff, is the origin stuff in this film. And I know that's kind of hypocritical of what I was talking about Batman Begins, but this one's actually entertaining and helmed in a nice way, unlike Batman Begins, which is just a basic origin story. Here, though, when we actually get into the action, it's like a whole hour and a half of just one long action sequence. And for me, it gets kind of boring, because it's just the same thing. Oh, a city's getting destroyed. Superman's fighting General Zod. The same thing over and over again. It's just long and kind of exhausting to get through. And so, just when it's the origin stuff, it's really nice. But then, when we just get the hour and a half long action sequence, I feel like there should have been more cream on top. Number 9, Spider-Man 3. This is the one that I don't really remember, but when I first watched it, I kind of enjoyed it. We're not really going to spend that much time on here because I don't really remember. But for me, it's an unpopular opinion. I did enjoy this one. Don't really remember it, though. I need to watch the Sam Raimi trilogy. So there's not really... Yeah, I'm not going to talk at all about it because I don't remember this one. It was just the biggest one of the year, and I do remember enjoying it when I first watched it. Number 8, The Batman. The most recent on this list is this year's film. And... yeah, I really like this film. Mainly because this is the best Gotham. Gotham is a character. All the characters, we don't really need to spend time on the origin story. It's just, we're expected to know the lore of the Batman. And so, then they just throw us in this universe. And it's really nice. We get to spend a significant amount of time on a Batman story. And then all the other characters get their time to shine. Catwoman has her best story, by far, that is ever shown in film. I really, really liked her on screen. They written her perfectly, and that's another thing. The characters were written perfectly. The Batman was written perfectly. Catwoman was written perfectly. The Penguin, Carmine Falcone. They all nailed the characters, and the actors and actresses performing them were great. And on top of that, we have nice cinematography, nice action. It's just, Matt Reeves is one of my favorite directors. He has to be. I haven't seen his Rise of the Planet of the Apes or his Planet of the Apes films, but I really need to, because he just knocks it out of the park with the Batman and the characterization. Again, I need to rewatch this film because I can't really pinpoint my thumb on any specific problems, but I know there is some here. But anyways, magnificent storytelling, magnificent Batman movie. It's not my favorite. That goes to The Dark Knight. But The Batman does a really, really great job at what it does. Number 7, Captain America Civil War. The biggest of the trilogy, and I think that's because it's an Avengers film. There's so much action going back. You spend a lot of time on explaining what this Civil War is, what's happening in this world, and they kind of just nail it on the head. I didn't like this when I first watched it, but on rewatches, I've seen it 3 times, and I liked it even more each time I saw it. There's some emotions as we go into the end. I think the Captain America trilogy is a trilogy that I think if I just binge all 3 movies, it will be a franchise that I really, really love. And for me, this one, like I said, it's got so much action. The action is really nice. My favorite thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the character chemistry. It's all just really great. And that's an icing on top in the Captain America universe. Now, I do need to rewatch this. I haven't seen it in like 3 years. And so I don't really have many thoughts on it, except I really enjoyed the action, the story, and the finale was really great and kind of set up Avengers Infinity War in a perfect way. Number 6, Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, this is a film that the more I watch it, the more I don't like it. But I still really enjoy this one. It does kind of cram a bunch of plot lines into one film. But the action here is nice, and we still got the chemistry of the Avengers. Personally, I think the final 2 Avengers films were much better than the first 2. Because we get this massive universe and all the character chemistry. But having like the 6, I think there's 6 Avengers chemistry with each other, that's all great. And then on top, the action is also helmed really nicely, and Ultron is also done really nicely, and it sets up Phase 3 in a nice way to go. And again, I haven't seen this one in quite some time. The last time I watched it, I didn't quite connect with it as much as I have on previous ones. But just know that when I was first watching this film, I watched it over and over. I really liked this film. 5th place is Avengers. And the reason it's here is I think that this film also is... I think this film, the main reason people like it so much is it's so nostalgia. It has so much... what's the word? It has so much nostalgia in this film, and that's mainly due to the fact that the characters have so much chemistry, and it's just, again, a basic story. The Avengers unite to stop Loki. It kind of has this pattern, and every time I watch it, I'm like, this, again, is something that I can just click on my TV and have it on in the background. It's really entertaining, got great action, sets up the universe in a fabulous way. And again, I just loved watching this over and over because it's just got so much nostalgia to it. This was one of the first movies I've ever seen in a theater. And, I really, really still like this movie. Number 4, Iron Man. And I do need to talk about The Dark Knight for a hot second. The Dark Knight is a better movie. And I think it's not because of Batman, it's because of Heath Ledger. Even though I did rewatch, I do like Batman. Batman stories, you need to nail the characters. Heath Ledger nails it, and I really think that Christian Bale has done a great job in this trilogy. And so, again, I don't think that's a bigger movie, but I do think this is a better one. And that's mainly because of Heath Ledger and his awesome performance. But number 4 is actually Iron Man. And yeah, it's a really, really great movie to start off the MCU in. It's got action. It's got a nice story. Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. He nails the character perfectly from this film all the way to the end of the universe. I really enjoy this film. It's something that I haven't really wanted to rewatch, but that's because I've seen it about a billion times. And yeah, it's what started the MCU. And if it wasn't this good, I really don't think we would have had the MCU we have today. If they started with Iron Man 2, this universe would have sucked. But they didn't start with Iron Man 2. They started with this fantastic origin story for the character. And yeah, again, it has some nostalgic instruments in it too. And I really don't think it would have been as good as if Robert Downey Jr. wasn't in the lead. Now, kicking off our top 3, it is Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, this film is so emotional. I walked out of the theater crying because Peter, I'm not going to spoil it, but Peter, all the stuff he does, all the shocking events that happen in this film, I really, really, really enjoy what they did. This film has balls. I don't really ever think another Spider-Man film could do what this film has. I mean, it's pretty much out there. Tobey and Andrew being drawn into this film, that was great. A lot of the emotions also came from them, and each one of them had their own great scene too. Tobey Maguire has great scenes. Andrew Garfield, we all know what that one scene was, and it was pretty great. And I could see a lot of fans bawling their eyes out, a lot of fans cheering at this end of the movie. The only disappointment for me was Venom wasn't in it, but it doesn't really matter. And all the stuff surrounding Morbius right now, Sony's just, I don't know what's going on with Sony. But this film was so emotional, had great action, and I've actually already pre-ordered the Steelbook. I'm going to watch it on the day I get it. I really, really need to rewatch this film. But this is probably the most emotional out of every film on this list. And that's going from what number 2 and 1 are. Number 2, Avengers Endgame. You already know what number 1 is too. And then instantly, I was like, yeah, this really surprised me. The time heist stuff. The trailer just seemed like this would just be kind of like a slow movie. Then I heard it was 3 hours. And so I was really nervous. And then the time heist stuff. And it just creates a story that I never really thought a Marvel movie would do. And it's pretty freaking awesome. And then we get to the ending. And we all know that one scene. That scene. Wow. That scene was just awesome. And the final battle, I could just watch over and over again. It's really great. Now, again, I won't really rewatch this film constantly because it's 3 hours long, but like, if I'm sick, I always really turn to the Infinity War and Endgame. And a big thing of that is the character chemistry. The character chemistry is awesome. And in this film, the real standout for me is, again, that final battle. It's so awesome, and it makes this entire film worth it. And even though that film's good, it's pretty bad in comparison to what the final battle was. But this two-part finale to the Avengers saga is just great. But we need to talk about number one, which is Avengers Infinity War. Now, this film I didn't like when I first watched it, but rewatching it, I love this film. And that's because this is my comfort film. I know, everyone dies. Thanos almost destroys the world. Yeah, how is this your comfort film, Zachary? Well, and that's because of character chemistry. They all have fantastic chemistry. And it's freaking awesome. I love just watching these scenes where all these characters, I can just sit back and laugh at the same jokes over and over. Because all these performers are amazing. Their chemistry is great. And that is my favorite thing about the MCU. I also really like this action. Thanos, as much as I didn't like him when I first watched it, grew to be one of the best villains of all time. He's practically right next to Heath Ledger because there's no beating Heath Ledger ever. But this film and this two-part is just amazing. And next time I'm sick, I'm probably just going to watch Infinity War and Endgame back-to-back because I just love these movies. I love the MCU. I love half of these movies on this list. But do you? I'd love to hear your ranking down below. It could be any movie from the years you were alive, or it could just be this list. It's your choice. But also make sure to include the Batman. Also, comment down below if you're going to talk about spoilers about the Batman. Big spoiler sign, because I don't want it to get spoiled for anyone. You need to go see that film. And so, yeah, this was just my list. I'd love to hear yours. And with that said, as always, make sure to subscribe to the like button, hit the bell, and comment down below. I got plenty more videos coming. And with that said, make sure to subscribe to join the Nerd Army. Peace out.